So Antamar she was going, but Masson and Bertrand found it no easy matter to find an immediate deputy, since the emperor had said he would rather die than give himself over to the care of Dr. Baxter, whom Lowe wished to attend him, or of Dr. Verling, who, since O'Meara's departure, had occupied his house until Antomarchi's arrival. Ignorant, negligent, and badly educated as this latter was, he was a doctor, or at least called himself one, with the prestige of a degree, even if it was assumed, and this was enough to induce the inhabitants of Longwood to be prepared to make sacrifices to have him at hand in case of urgent necessity. Efforts were therefore made to induce Antomarchi to agree to stay, and similar attempts to persuade the emperor to see him again. At this time, the emperor rarely dressed himself, ordered that no one should oblige him to go out, and certain pressure from Masson did not always succeed in the emperor's overcoming his dislike of the southeast wind, which upset him and irritated his nerves. Carriage drives and walks became more and more infrequent, and he never returned, but that he threw himself on his sofa completely exhausted. His feet were constantly frozen and could only be warmed by means of very hot towels, which he preferred to hot water bottles or anything else. To take the place of the exercise he disliked or could not get out of doors, he conceived the idea of erecting an indoor seesaw supported in the center by a pivot 3 or 4 feet high, and taking up his place at one end of the plank, he got one of his officers to level up matters on the other. This necessitated a little exertion on his part. Often, said Arthur Bertrand, he set my sister and 2 of my brothers or myself on the other end of the seesaw and amused himself by giving us terrific bumps, which sometimes threw us off. It provided both exercise and distraction from his misery. In this manner, February passed without anyone paying much attention to the fact. Vomiting became more frequent, almost daily. Weariness increased, and appetite became almost nil. But from time to time, when the wind dropped and the sun rose, he still went for short walks or rides. During the morning of March 17th, he received Abbe Bonavita, who was just going aboard, having been ordered back to Europe by his doctors. He was in bed, and the abbé, who had great difficulty in walking, approached him and bent a knee to kiss the emperor's hand. Napoleon requested him to arise and sit down, and gave him his instructions as to what he should tell Madame and the family. The abbé, who had not seen him for several weeks, departed dismayed at the havoc wrought by the disease on his features, and was at the same time profoundly moved by his calmness and resignation. Masson, a little later, in response to the emperor's request that he should even use violence towards him to induce him to go out, came as usual to ask him to go for a drive, and the doctor, who was present, also insisted, but the emperor, who was in bad, resisted. "I feel so ill," he said, "when I return, and I feel very comfortable in bed, but Masson, if you insist, have the carriage brought up." The general immediately came to say it was there, and that there was scarcely no wind. The emperor ate a little jellied meat, donned a pair of stocking pantaloons, slippers, a cravat, a green overcoat, and a round hat, and went out leaning upon Masson's arm. When they reached the carriage, he was unable to get in and returned, shaking with a shivering chill. He went straight to bed, and Marchand covered him with 2 blankets, and Overaz and Saint-Denis brought hot towels, which Marchand applied to his feet. He complained of feeling sick, and hot towels were applied to his stomach also. Perspiration began, and then such sweats that the sheets had to be changed. He dismissed the doctor, told Masson to go and have his breakfast, and got Marchand to read the campaigns of Dumouriez to him. When Bertrand came in the afternoon, he chatted with him about the campaign of '93, and feeling better, wanted to get up, go as far as his oak tree, and sit in its shade while his room was aired. In the space of a few minutes, another attack became evident. He returned with the assistance of Masson and Overaz, and went straight back to bed. His body was frozen, and the doctor was summoned, but he had gone to the town in charge of Bonavita. When he returned, the attack had passed, and after spending a good night, the emperor wanted to go out. The following morning, he took a glass of Malaga wine and a biscuit, and was conducted to his seat, but there he vomited again. A new attack took him, and his features became distorted, and his limbs cold. From that time onward, this was almost a daily bulletin, as if to aggravate his sufferings by the irritation of their continual buzzing and the smarting of their bites. Gnats swarmed around Longwood. The covered lamp had to be taken into the adjoining room, and a mosquito net erected, into which the mosquitoes flew in clouds This was a fresh torture added to the others. Almost every time he was wanted, Antomarchi was absent, which perhaps was not a bad thing, for his prescriptions were liable to produce serious disorders. Under what pretext he ordered an emetic, no one knew, and the emperor showed the greatest dislike for it. But finally, the 22nd, overcome by the insistence of those around him, he took it in 2 doses. His effort produced no result. Driven from his bed for lack of air beneath the mosquito net to an alternative equally unpleasant, that of being bitten by the gnats, he spent the night in his armchair without a light. A lamp being placed in the next room. The 23rd brought with it a kind of respite which enabled him to shave and clean his teeth. Antomarchi, triumphant, suggested a second emetic, and the emperor agreed, but the efforts which the vomiting demanded discouraged him, and thenceforward he refused to take it, drinking only aniseed liquorish water from a little bottle he kept near him. However, Antomarchi insisted, "You go for a walk and take one yourself," the emperor told him. The doctor did not reply, but endeavored to persuade Marchand to insert an emetic into the drinks he gave the emperor. Marchand refused, but a tactless remark by Bertrand led Napoleon to believe that his valet had done what the doctor wanted of him, and he became furiously angry with Marchand. He was a little better when Antomarchi returned from Jamestown and asked to be admitted. The surgeon sought to be excused the responsibility of endangering his life, since he would not avail himself of his remedies. "Ah, well, monsieur," Napoleon replied, "must I be accountable to you? Do you not think that death would be a heaven-sent relief to me? I do not fear it, but while I shall do nothing to hasten it, I shall not grasp at a straw to live." He dismissed him, and 2 days passed before he saw him again.